You're at a dinner party, surrounded by conversation, and you realize with sudden clarity that you would rather be anywhere else. Not because you dislike these people, not because you're depressed or antisocial, but because every word exchanged feels like a transaction you didn't agree to, and the cost is a piece of yourself you'll never get back. If you've ever felt this, if you've ever chosen your own company over a room full of others and been called cold for it, then you already know what Arthur Schopenhauer spent his entire life trying to explain. Most people think solitude is what happens when connection fails. Schopenhauer knew it was what happens when intelligence succeeds. And what he discovered about the mind's need for isolation is so unsettling that even today, we pretend it isn't true. Arthur Schopenhauer was a 19th century German philosopher who believed that human existence is driven by a blind, insatiable will, a force that makes us want, suffer, and want again in an endless cycle. He was miserable, brilliant, and viciously honest. He hated noise. He hated stupidity. He spent most of his life alone, and he wasn't sorry about it. While his contemporaries were building grand systems of optimism, Hegel preaching progress, the Romantics glorifying human connection, Schopenhauer was writing that most people are intellectually mediocre, that social life is a trap, and that the highest minds inevitably retreat into themselves. He wasn't bitter. He was observant. His philosophy was simple. The more intelligence you possess, the less you need other people. Not because you think you're better, but because your mind operates on a frequency most others simply cannot reach. And once you understand this, you stop apologizing for your solitude. You start defending it. Here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. Schopenhauer wasn't just talking about preference. He was talking about necessity. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free." Freedom to him wasn't political. It was cognitive. It was the ability to think without interference, to exist without performance, to be in your own mind without the constant drag of other people's expectations. Intelligent people don't avoid social interaction because they lack social skills. They avoid it because most social interaction is not an exchange of ideas. It's a rehearsal of scripts, small talk, status signaling, the endless performance of agreeability. And for someone whose mind runs on depth, this is suffocating. Schopenhauer believed that the majority of people think in cliches. They repeat what they've heard, not what they've discovered. They talk to fill silence, not to arrive at truth. And if your mind is wired to question, to analyze, to go deeper, then every conversation that stays on the surface feels like a waste of the only resource you can't get back: time. This is not arrogance. This is self-preservation. The intelligent mind knows that it is shaped by what it consumes, and mediocre conversation is junk food for thought. So it withdraws, not out of contempt, but out of respect for its own potential. But here's where it gets darker. Schopenhauer understood something most people refuse to face. Other people lie to you. Not maliciously, but necessarily. Society runs on politeness, on the suppression of truth, on the agreement that certain things simply won't be said. And the more intelligent you are, the more you notice the gap between what people say and what they mean. In solitude, there is no performance. There is no need to manage someone else's emotions, to soften your thoughts, to translate your inner world into something palatable. Solitude is the only place where you can be intellectually honest without consequence. Carl Jung, who built much of his psychology on Schopenhauer's foundation, wrote that loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. The intelligent person feels this loneliness most acutely in crowds, not in isolation. Because in isolation, you are not lonely. You are aligned. You are with the one person who can actually understand the full scope of what you think, yourself. Schopenhauer went further. He argued that the need for constant social validation is a sign of inner poverty. If you cannot bear to be alone, it's because you cannot bear to be with your own thoughts. And if that's true, then no amount of company will ever fill the void. This is why intelligent people often seem distant. They're not rejecting connection. They're rejecting the false version of it. They're waiting for the rare conversation that actually matters, and they're willing to wait in silence until it arrives. And this is the part most people never talk about. Schopenhauer wrote, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." If your mind operates at the level of genius, or even just a few steps ahead of the average, then every social interaction requires translation. You have to slow down. Simplify. Explain the steps that feel obvious to you but are invisible to others. And over time, this becomes exhausting. It's not that intelligent people think they're superior. It's that they're constantly aware of the gap. And closing that gap over and over in every conversation, in every group setting, drains energy that could be spent thinking, creating, or simply existing without friction. Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Schopenhauer, put it bluntly, "In solitude, the lonely man is eaten up by himself, in crowds, by the many." For the intelligent person, the crowd is not a refuge. It's a demand to shrink, to conform, to participate in rituals that feel hollow. So they choose solitude, not as an escape, but as a return to the kind of mental space where they can actually function at full capacity. Schopenhauer believed that the greatest minds throughout history, artists, philosophers, scientists, were almost always solitary. Not because they couldn't connect, but because connection was incompatible with the kind of deep, sustained thought their work required. And in a world that glorifies networking, collaboration, and constant social engagement, this is a truth no one wants to hear. Some minds do their best work alone. Now, bring this into the present. We live in an age where solitude is pathologized. If you're not posting, you're invisible. If you're not networking, you're falling behind. If you choose a quiet night alone over a loud night out, people assume something is wrong with you. Social media has turned existence into performance. Every meal, every thought, every moment is an opportunity to be seen. And the intelligent person looks at this and feels a kind of existential nausea, because they know that none of it is real connection. It's the simulation of it. It's validation without depth, presence without substance. Schopenhauer would have despised social media, not because he hated people, but because he understood that the mind requires silence to function. And we've built a world that is allergic to silence. The modern intelligent person faces a choice: participate in the performance and lose yourself, or step back into solitude and be labeled. And increasingly, they're choosing the latter, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because here's what Schopenhauer knew that we've forgotten: the quality of your inner life determines the quality of your outer life. If your mind is constantly interrupted, fractured, pulled in a dozen directions by notifications and obligations, and the noise of other people's opinions, then you never get to hear your own thoughts. Solitude is not loneliness. It is the refusal to be colonized by noise. And the intelligent person understands that protecting their solitude is not selfish. It's survival. So what does this mean for you? If you've ever felt guilty for preferring your own company, stop. Schopenhauer spent his entire life arguing that the ability to be alone is not a deficiency. It's a sign of intellectual and emotional maturity. The person who cannot be alone is dependent on distraction, on validation, on the constant presence of others to drown out the silence they fear. But the person who chooses to be alone, who finds richness in their own thoughts, who doesn't need an audience to feel real. That person is free. Solitude is not the absence of connection. It is the presence of self. And in a world that constantly tries to pull you out of yourself, the choice to stay grounded in your own mind is an act of rebellion. Schopenhauer was right. The intelligent mind does not fear solitude. It craves it. Because solitude is where clarity lives. It's where ideas form. It's where you remember who you are when no one is watching. And if society calls you cold for that, if people mistake your self-sufficiency for arrogance, let them. You were never meant to be understood by everyone, only by yourself. If this resonated with you, if you've ever chosen silence over small talk and been judged for it, leave one word in the comments that describes how you feel about solitude. Just one word. Liberation, peace, loneliness, strength. Whatever it is, drop it below. If you want to go deeper, the next video continues where this one ends. It's already waiting for you. Schopenhauer ended his life alone, not because he failed at connection, but because he succeeded at something rarer, understanding himself completely. Maybe it's time you did the same.